Do you see yourselves as bookstagrammers?
I'm
I
like a
don't.
writer grammar. Like I am in the Bookstagram community. Like, no, I don't think anyone can see this podcast, but behind me are just books and books. I am what you might call a book dragon, which is somebody who just hoards a lot of books. Okay. So I'm in the Bookstagram community because I am constantly buying books and reading books. And, Elle and I do a show for Writers by Writers, so we buy a lot of indie books and stuff. So it's a great place to connect that way. But as an actual bookstagrammer, no, that's not really my jam. My reels and my content is all revolved around my writing and then what I can give back to the writer part of the community. So how to write, tropes, how to write flawed characters, and that's what I specialize in, like, character building and world building. Whereas in, like, obviously writing romance. Whereas like a bookstagrammer would be like, hey, this is my review of this book and why I liked it, and also read this. Um, so
But Ellen, you certainly do that, don't you?
I do. So yeah, I'm kind of between both worlds. I'm both a bookstagrammer and a writer grammar. That feels weird to say, but we're gonna go with it.
we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, it's like fetch. It's just gonna start happening. And so I am kind of between the two. I read a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. It's probably gross how much I read, but it's fine. Um, and yeah, so I do reviews. I do accept books from indie authors. I'm a little bit picky about the books I do accept, though, because I want to make sure it's books that I know I will for sure read, because I do have such a giant backlog of
TBR,
books.
you
So
have a giant TBR.
it's true. I just don't like talking about it. It's a little embarrassing. And anyway, so I do only accept like contemporary adult romance whenever I do accept indie author books, because I don't want people giving me a book for free that I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to get to your book, so I'd rather buy their book and read it and stuff like that versus have them spend money to send it to me. It just doesn't feel fair. But yeah, so I do reviews. I do posts where I will write my thoughts on a book, or I'll give recommendations of different books. I read in a lot of different genres. But of course, I also give back to the writing side. So I make reels with tips for writing. A lot of my tips tend to be geared towards romance writers specifically, to helping build like romance worlds and contemporary worlds, as well as like trying to spread some like positivity about, like, don't let the IG algorithm,
Yeah.
define you and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I kind of straddle both worlds.
She also makes really good friendship reels that make you feel warm and fuzzy. You said you liked her for warm and fuzzies, so she's very thoughtful. So
I am a words of affirmation person. I like
I
giving
know it's
them and I
horrible.
like receiving them, but whenever I receive them, I get like a schoolgirl. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet, So anyway,
The trick is to slide into her DMs. I'm gonna do this for my indie friends here. Okay, slide into her DMs. Tell her you love her content and how funny she is, and then pitch her your book. I guarantee it'll work. I'm kidding, but she's listen.
no comment.
Yeah, I would say I'm not a bookstagrammer, like at all. I barely as bad as it sounds. Unless I know you and I'm reading your book, or unless the book I bought and read is that good, I'm not even really throwing many reviews out, to be honest with you either. And I say it's most of the time it's because of a couple reasons, and I guess
Well, it's a
sorry.
passion, and if you're not
Yeah,
passionate about it.
and also I don't want to like if I don't want to finish the book, or if I really didn't like it, I also just like, as much as I know it's good to have honest reviews out there, I also don't want to like put
Be that guy.
negativity
Yeah, I
on
got
that
you.
that
Yeah.
book or that person, right? Especially
You
indie
don't want to be the
authors.
guy on Goodreads that's like,
Yeah. One
this book
star.
keeps me up at night because of how horrible the dialogue
Exactly.
was.
Like the cliffhanger is actually, I
Yeah.
can't wait to see if they're gonna write something good. No.
Oh.
No, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
So
Never said.
but yikes, right? That would be terrible. No, I'm definitely on the other side of it, the writer side
Mhm.
of it. Which is why I started my own podcast that I kind of which is I'm finally going to get back to a second season of. And I'm finally getting back into social media for writers and stuff
Mhm.
because I dropped off the face of the earth for, I don't know if you realized that, Basil, for a hot minute. So it was in the same timeline of like writing my second book, and that's in the trilogy, weirdly for the reasons that I'm writing the books. So I like fell
It sounds
off,
like that book's gonna be really good though, because
I
like if
hope
you have
the
to
third
like
book is this good.
detox.
We'll
Yeah.
see. But it's mostly just like life, ran me over, and then not literally. I didn't get hit by a car.
I mean, you could
metaphorically.
have. So hey,
I
silver
could have.
lining.
True. Yeah, but yeah, no, definitely on the writer side. I like to help people build their worlds and their characters and their dialogue, and I come from the acting world, so that also I think is helpful too on the influencing side of things.
I just want to say in the world of reviews, for any authors out there, just let you know, reviews are for readers. Never feel like you have to like read your reviews or respond to them or anything like that. Or anyone who's leaving a review, like you are allowed to leave your feelings. Just make sure that you're being like respectful when you do it. It's okay to not finish a book or for a book not to be your jam, but make sure that you're like saying why it's not your jam, and be nice about it.
Yeah, reasoning.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
And honestly, not to turn the chat into this or be that guy, but sometimes I scroll Goodreads and I'll look at like the 1-star reviews, and like, for instance, there'll be one that says, wow, this book just had too many smut scenes. I'm like, oh ho ho, add to cart. I'm kidding, but like the reviews are for,
I do that
for readers. So like if you see something in a review where somebody said it, like, okay, my favorite book at the moment is Normal People by Sally Rooney, and there is 2 types of readers of that book. There are the people who love it and they do 5 stars, and there are the people who hate it and they do the 1 star or they don't finish it. And I felt so connected to Connell. It wasn't even like funny. Like I was obsessed with that character and the book and everything. And I went on Goodreads to leave like my 5-star review, and I was looking, I was like, it has an average of 3. How is that possible? So anyway, someone out there loves your book and is obsessed with it is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. And it's about finding that reader, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And we discussed, sort of the online strategies, sort of meta, spending a bit of money on ads, getting the data, the analytics, and then sort of honing in a bit. One thing I wanted to ask is, if you've seen the sort of the data and you know who's buying your book and who's connecting with what you're putting out, would you ever sort of consider incorporating that sort of person, that sort of into your story? And if so, why? If not, why? Why not?
So for me, I try to fill my world with like just like a bunch of like variety of people, I guess, because the world is very vibrant, so should your books, so like hopefully I'm already including people who are showing up in that, and I'm not excluding anyone like that. But like I can't say that I personally spent a lot of time staring at numbers or demographics and being like, okay, so I have a lot of people in this bracket or whatever, so I should devote a character to them, like I kind of just write the stories of how they should be and who should be there and whatever, and hope that there's a deeper meaning in the overall message that like binds them all to me. Haha. Yeah, no, I don't know, but
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see what you mean about that, right? Like as far as, because I know you've also mentioned character and world building being a very like solid like sort of base for you as well, and world building is like really essential for me. That's where it kind of all starts, and I'd like to think that everybody is represented, or at least like some variety of them is in the world or in the book. I might not mention them, which might be more of the problem for that person rather than the fact that they're not really a part of it. But I don't, the thing is, you can't it's one of those things where you can't please everybody and you can't include everyone, right? And there will be people, especially in my case, right? Like I write about chronic illness and disability in some of the characters, right? They deal with a lot of that. As you may or may not know, like if you do have one of those, if you suffer from anything, that you and another person can have the literal same thing and it's not the same experience, right? And so what I try to do is infuse as much of my own experience into it, and as much experience as I can based on other research and other people that I know. Which I will say, tying it back to the question of will I include people who have like was it read it and reached out, or is it just ideal? Would I ever include specific people in the book?
Yeah, so once you've got the data about who's reading the book, or maybe anyone who's reached out to you, what do you do with the data basically? Is it just for marketing, or do you actually want to sort of incorporate that into your story?
Right. Okay. Yes. So tying it back into that, right? Like I don't want to ever have it be a number. I always want it to be a name. Like if I'm going to bring somebody in, they're not a number, right?
Okay.
They're not a data piece. My data is strictly that. It's for me to look at and me to say, okay, who am I going to, like, how can I alter my ads to be better for that market? But it's not going to be, oh, I'm not having 75-year-old males interested in this book. I need to go target that age group, right? But if somebody reaches out to me and says,
that made me laugh because I'm like, how would you do that?
Right?
Like,
I put an ad on MeTV, but but if somebody reaches out to me and they say, hey, I love that you're representing this group. I am somebody who's of that group, but I feel that my experience is not that. It would be really nice to see XYZ, or I experience that XYZ. I try to have that conversation, and then I try to implement that because I want those people to feel seen and represented, right? So if I can, I will represent you in that aspect. It's not going to be based on that person necessarily, but it will be based on their experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And Elle?
So for me, I mean, I guess you can't see me. This is a podcast. I'm biracial. My mom's Black. My dad's white. And that was something I never saw represented in media growing up. It was Black with Black, white with white. And anyone who was any shade of anything, it was like the shades had to match. You didn't have dark with a lighter skinned Black person and all this stuff. So that was something that has always like kind of sat with me and has always been like hard for me. Even growing up when I was, dating and stuff, I got nervous about dating white men because like, is that okay? Because I'm not white. Like there was all these things. So it was really important to me that my novels represented different cultures, different people coming together. And so whenever it comes down to it, what I'm hoping is that I am creating real characters that people can relate to. So I don't necessarily strike out to, grab someone and say, this is you. I'm just hoping that you can connect with the realness of my characters, and that, my inclusion, that, people date who people date. We fall in love with who we fall in love with. We connect with people who we connect with. That's kind of what I'm hoping is what people are coming in for, and that representation is enough.
Okay, here's a question though. If you find out like the data comes in and vast majority, let's say 95% of your sales are coming from Italy, what do you do with that data? Do you sort of incorporate that into your next book? Create a character?
No, I really just like writing.
Oh, because they're already buying your book, right?
You translate it into Italian.
I like writing stories where, I don't know. I like the stories that I write. I think that they're, good as they are. And I'm just hoping that they can connect with a piece of it, because I try to write very real characters. Like right now, the novel I'm working on is dealing with a woman who's going through a really painful divorce. And I'm like, there are lots of divorcees out there from all over the world, and someone's going to connect with it, whether they're white, Black, Hispanic, Italian, German, like they'll be able to connect with it on some level. And so that's kind
because
of where
divorce is a universal language. Hey.
Unfortunately.
So
yeah.
I just want to say, if I looked at the data and there was 95% of my sales were coming from Italy, I would immediately change my Facebook ads from the US to Italy. That is what I would do.
100%.
Yeah.
And translate them to
Yeah,
Italian.
exactly.
Yeah. I think that would be a good thing to do with the data, would be starting to look at that translation and where are my ads going, like, yeah.
And maybe I'd reach out to some Italian bookstagrammers and be like, hey, what's up?
I actually, you know what though, is like, I wouldn't make a whole character, like I wouldn't scrap a character and then insert an Italian character, but like, because that wouldn't be the story that I was originally
right, and that's not what they're buying already.
But I would think of, for my next book or something, I might, because if the location, if like the setting itself is not literally the most important thing for what the story is, I might look at a town in Italy for it, like I might be like, or they're visiting Italy.
Unless, I mean, because there is an effect here, okay? So I'm from the Midwest, okay? And I find that a lot of my bookish friends enjoy reading things from, say, New York or California because they are not there. Yeah. So if your Italian readers are reading your American book, maybe it's because they don't want to read something where they're at. They want to read about something in, the middle of America.
Yeah. You can always try it out. Put a free chapter out there for your newsletter and see if those Italian readers are interested. And then
I mean, bring me to my next sort of question is, with your book, before or during or even after you launch your recent offering, do you do any sort of market analysis? Do you sort of study the market? Do you know where your book will go in that market? And are you able to sort of position it so that it's sort of unique, but sort of fits into that sort of that niche?
So I just want to say that Elle and I have the benefit of spending all day, every day, reading and writing and talking to other writers. So we have a good time. Like, it's easy for us, I guess, to keep our ear to the ground on what's selling and what's popular, especially trope wise, within our respective stuff. So Elle is really into contemporary. I'm into both fantasy and contemporary. So and both those genres in romance have different things that are important to the readers, and they change seasonally and whatever. So before, when I write a book, I said this before, I write the message that I'm trying to say. I'm writing for myself, and hopefully my readers are going to come for that, because honestly, 2 years ago, fae romance was really popular, but now it's dragons, and then in 2 months it's going to be pirates, and that's a real prediction. I just want to throw that out there. Pirates are on the rise, but Elle's laughing, but they are on the rise. So I guess if you're part of the community, it makes it easier for you to not have to do the rigid research ahead of time. You kind of get a feel for what's coming, kind of like the seasons changing, when fall is on its way, but as far as like a marketing standpoint for it, like certain things sell differently. So, I mean, you'll see like an increase of reels with like quotes from the books if you're selling a certain type of romance or whatever. Like, I have to speak from a romance because that is my genre here, but quote reels connect really well with the romance readership, right? Or ads with just reviews on them and stuff like that. So you kind of get like a feel for what's doing really well, especially with like trends. So like that would be the extent of like my research. Now, granted, Meta does tell you things like, hey, this did really well, this didn't do well, and you can like hone in from that, but for me, it's really like, I don't want to say it's like, I sound like like one of those free spirits, but it's really more like a vibe. Like it's like, you know.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's true. I will also I'll just add to that, like the data is actually really handy for me for times where like I'm not in the market 100% at the moment that I'm getting ready to publish. I do try to read a little bit more of what I'm writing as I'm getting it through editing. Not as much in the writing process, because actually I don't
It's
want to be
hard.
as influenced by the writing. I
Yeah.
also just don't want to be influenced as much in my writing as
Right.
but I do try to look at what's the keyword. I do try to like boil it down to like keywords and sales, and I will push an ad or two out preemptively for the first book again, or my second book, and I'll just see like what's working right now based on those settings. And then between like a few different ads, I'll look at those analytics, the age range, all of that stuff, and I'll try to pare down to the most effective elements, and then throw all of that onto the first ad for the book that I'm actually going to have coming out soon, right? Like that would be my plan.
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
I use analytics a lot to kind of look at where is my book selling and that kind of stuff. Like I know for Calorglin, it's pretty popular in the UK, probably because it has a UK kind of setting to it a bit. But the other place that it's really popular has been the US. But I did kind of recently start playing with ads in Canada. And a lot of it just comes down to like, and it was really like the ad did really well in Canada. So a lot of it just kind of comes down to like, yeah, you kind of have to figure out who would be interested in buying this book. And as a Canadian, I guess I kind of have an upper hand of knowing, like, I guess, what the Canadian market is interested in and what Canadian romance readers are into. It's just like Canada has less of a population than the US, and I don't think it's less than the UK. I don't know. I could be very wrong on that. The UK is pretty populated. So, but yeah, so sometimes it is a little bit of playing around and not being afraid to play around, but I mostly use analytics to like help me figure out where should I put my ads? Where is my money being best spent? Because obviously, like any other business, you have to measure how much am I getting in versus how much am I putting out, because you don't want to be too in the red.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like stop marketing in Canada if no one in Canada is buying.
Yeah, like I mean, if you're doing an ad in Canada and no one's, you know, interested, it's like, okay, well, Canada, maybe this isn't working, or you know, it could be something. But like I said, when it comes to doing your ads, the biggest thing I can say is don't niche down too much. Leave it pretty open so that you can get like the whole thing is you want your ad in front of as many eyes as possible. And that's what I kind of use the analytics to help me with, is like how many eyes can I get this ad in front of, so that they're maybe interested.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, because Basil, you like details when we expand on these things. So when Elle is saying don't niche down, what she's saying is on Facebook I can't talk, on Meta, when you make an ad, you can do things like my book could be for people who enjoy the Sookie Stackhouse series, or, you know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You want to avoid that and really just keep it generic, where it's okay, I'm in the US in this age range and then I'm shipping it out, you know, or I'm in the UK at this age range and I'm shipping it out, because the Meta AI is actually really, really good at defining who should see your ad. And then when it comes back and it says this is who's looking at it, maybe you learn something like, oh, I'm actually marketing towards this person a lot more than I thought I was. So that's what Elle is saying when she's saying don't niche down. It's just because you think that people who enjoy Game of Thrones would love the Ostler's Boy does not mean they will. So avoid tagging too many things, because every time you do that, you shrink your overall audience.
Yeah.
So would you recommend sort of going wide, being what's there, and then sort of honing,
I would recommend
or
going
just continuously going wide?
Yeah, continuously go wide. Once you have something that works really well, it kind of continues to work well, because Facebook will continue to kind of push it towards.
Well, because
different
ultimately
audience and stuff.
Facebook wants people to stay on their ad,
Yeah.
and they want people to interact with the content. So if your ad is doing well, like that, their goal is to make your ad do as well
Because
as
then
it
you'll
can.
come back and spend more
So-
money.
Yes, exactly. So that's what the
Business people.
algorithm is. It wants you to do well. So if you allow it its ability to, you know, if you don't tell it, you can only show my ad to these people, then it has more resources to show it. And once it discovers, okay, people named Lane in New York are, you know, buying this book, then they will show it more to this, you know.
The lanes in New York specifically.
That's right. And my microphone is listening, and so Facebook will start to recommend certain things because it's hearing me talk about those books.
Exactly.
But
that's another talk.
yeah, for real. I will say though, the one thing that you can do for analytics that, like, instead of niching down on the keywords and on the, you know, if they like this book and that book, is not so much focus on the internal side of it, but rather the visual side of it, right? Like, if you're seeing at 18, if you're seeing like 15 to 25-year-olds are your primary readers, firstly, get to TikTok.
You need a video format.
Secondly, start making videos. Start putting like animated photos, captions, music. Make sure you're looking at the trending audio that's happening right now, and hashtags that actually sometimes, or they do, or
SEOs,
maybe sometimes don't go with your actual book. Is a weird thing, but yeah, I mean, you gotta look at the analytics for that. Let them help you decide how to what content you're making for your ads, rather than who you're.
And also there's another thing where you can go to facebook.com/ I think it's called like ad catalog or something like that. Ad gallery. You can look at other people's ads and see what is doing well. So if you are selling a spicy werewolf book, you can look at that and see, oh, hey, they're only showing clips or, you know, quotes of this. Then I need a strong visual graphic with one really smutty quote there to sell this thing, you know.
And I had a thought and now I lost it.
Sorry, to avoid any generic
I remember
what
I was
okay,
sorry. What I was gonna say is a lot of what I tell people when they come to me and they ask about like marketing and how do I make this work for me and how do I get my ad in front of as many people as possible, I always say less is more. Like, if you're like, depending who you're marketing to, like sometimes the problem is that your ad is too busy. There's too much stuff to look at. And it's like, it automatic people are like, no, swiping by this. I can't get this. I can't figure it out.
If you give them less information, they have to look for more, you know.
And a lot of like, for example, if you can't throw money at advertising, and totally like, do not feel bad if you cannot throw money at advertising. This is not like the be all end all of your sales or anything like that. But on Instagram, for example, like I always tell people, like, make your pictures minimal, make your captions long. Like the Instagram is looking at how long is someone staying on that post. So if your caption is long and people are reading it and they're interested, like, again, like you can start using that towards your analytics, because it will start to generate like how many people are coming to this post, how many people are on it, who are they,
who's saving
were they your follower, were they
it?
not your follower, how many people have shared it, what is the like, so
who
that's
sharing it to,
and you have to have them on there for a certain amount of time for the algorithm to pick it up and be able to give you any level of analytics. So little tricks, little hacks.
Sort of reminders about your most recent offering, where we can find you, and what are you up to? So, Lane?
Again, my name is Lane Northcutt. I am the author of the Delivery Company series. It's a YA dystopian novel. The most recent offering from me is Rejected, which is book 2 in the trilogy, which is available anywhere you can buy books. And I'm working on book 3 at the moment.
I'm Elle. I'm a TV contemporary romance author. My latest book is Calorglin, with its novella counterpart, coming out November 15th, both on Amazon. Find me on Instagram at ellemeredith.writes.
And that makes me Meg. I'm at author Megan Alexandria on Instagram and pretty much any social media. I write the Miranda Writes trilogy. Currently, book 1, Night Shift, is out. It's available on Amazon. And the Holiday Affair, book 1 of the High Seas novels, is out as well on Amazon.
Thank you. Awesome. And also, you do some podcasts for authors. So you wanna, and then Indino.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that's
check that
part
out.
2. I really do hope you enjoyed it and got some value out of it. Please do comment. Let me know what topics you want me to cover next. Don't forget to subscribe and like and all that sort of stuff that helps to support the channel. And yeah, I've been MC Basil, sci-fi fantasy author. All right, well, bye-bye and thank you.